Hey everybody, I really need to get rid of this little Yoda Funko because he's green and the chroma key goes right through him. So it's like this little ghost Santa hat here. Yeah, no, that's supposed to be a Yoda.
Just a hat floating.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's great when I sit down to do this and I'm wearing a green shirt and I go to hit the button and I'm like, oh, crap. Then I have to get up and go change clothes. So, oh, you know, the one thing I didn't do, I was going to, then my camera broke and I'm like, well, great. Now I have to replace the camera too. The whole thing was just a mess.
I put up some festive Yoda lights behind me so that we're in
go.
the spirit of Life Day.
And Tim doesn't have his
What do I do?
Ornaments.
What do I do?
Do you?
No, because we're talking Star Wars. I have.
You can be festive. Life Day, Tim. Come on.
Captain Tarbles.
Get with the program.
Captain Tarbles.
Good evening, Jedi Girl. I don't want full screen. Well, I guess I'm going to have to go full screen on that. Okay. Oh, no, and I need to get out of full screen.
Lou,
because
it looks cold there.
It is.
Oh,
It's okay.
put a
It was
jacket
winter.
on.
Nah, mud troopers were tough.
You need a good woolen hat and something to, cover yourself.
I saw a really nice woolen hat today. I was like, ooh. I sent my wife a picture of it for Christmas idea.
both people who have seen me wear my hat recently said, wow, you look really good in that hat. One of them said, yeah, that hat looks really sexy on you. I'm like, wow, okay.
Nice.
So I broke up with the first one, and you're married, so... But thanks.
Hey, being part of Team Bald Guy, hats are in the contract.
That's true. It's absolutely true.
No way around it.
Show notes.
Not that we're ashamed of the baldness. It's to protect the baldness.
It's the cold.
Okay. Got the show notes up. Hit the button to record. Lou, you are recording a backup, yes?
I will be in about 2 seconds.
Right.
I am now.
All right. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Outer Rim. We are going to be discussing another episode of The Mandalorian. This is going to be Season 2, Episode 6, The Tragedy. And wow, what a tragedy it is. I still haven't recovered from one major event in this episode. We're going to get to that in a few minutes, but we do want to point out we are going to spoil the heck out of this episode. So if you have not seen it yet, then bookmark this somewhere and come back and listen to it later on, or watch it later on if you're on YouTube. And we are going to jump right into this in just a second. But first, I'm Eric. I'm joined tonight by Lou, Tom, and Tim. We've got the whole crew here. Tim, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm really excited to talk about this episode. Loved this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. Give me a good time.
It is.
And wine. I have wine. Thank you. Cheers, everybody.
I don't have wine.
Cheers.
If I had alcohol while I podcasted, I would be in so much trouble it wouldn't even be funny. Lou, how are you doing? What kind of
I'm doing great.
beverage are you imbibing?
I have a beer. A beer. a Rosemary's Baby pumpkin beer. Yes.
A beer, a female
I know it's Christmas.
beer,
It's a Halloween beer. I'm sorry. I know.
A drop of... No, that's not how it goes. And Ray's from the other movie. Okay. Tim, how are you? Tom, how are you doing?
You already
I'm
got
good.
me.
I did.
For some reason, I just have these, like, Boba Fett toys that are just...
Wow.
just happen.
That's not relevant to today's episode, Tom. Try to stay on target.
No,
Boba wearing like a black tunic under his
Stay
armor?
on target. Yeah, well, not yet. Lou, you only change... If you're a Mandalorian, you only change clothes like once every decade, okay? So...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because that armor, it protects all the dirt from getting into the jumpsuit. So you're fine.
Okay.
That shirt was passed down to him from his
father,
so it's an honor.
Imagine how smelly the undergarments get.
I mean,
there's a serious BO issue.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
You're not going to be making too many
Well, yeah, I mean, any Seven Force member can tell you that.
And being on Tatooine,
Well,
too.
that's true.
Anyhow.
Yeah. I mean, like, good luck with getting a girlfriend.
Right?
Especially if you've trooped in like August.
Or a boyfriend, whatever. I mean, we're not discriminating. I mean, whatever you want, but good luck, because just smelly.
I mean, if they have COVID and they don't have a sense of smell because of it, that's probably a good place to start.
The only benefit of
COVID. They're
COVID.
spreading disease.
Let's please move on to the episode. So we are discussing.
Good luck tonight, Eric.
Like hurting toucans,
right? like hurting stormtroopers that are trying to assault a rocky cliff. So this is episode. This is chapter 14, season 2, episode 6, called "The Tragedy." And there's one really big tragedy that happens later in this episode. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But this one was directed by Robert Rodriguez. And I think it shows. It's very action heavy. And to me, it feels very much like the type of thing Robert Rodriguez would have directed. So I think he was
It's brilliant.
a good fit. Yeah.
It had me wanting to go watch Desperado immediately.
And this was actually the second shortest episode in the series. It was 33 minutes long, and that's including the intro and the 4.5 minutes of credits at the end.
What a fake out that was, because I walked into the episode last night. I saw something about the episode length, and I got a little bummed, thinking, well, what could they possibly do in 30 minutes?
They did a lot. It wasn't even a full 30 minutes.
Could I not have been wrong?
So this was 33 minutes. Tom, our resident trivia expert, you want to take a guess at what the actual shortest episode of The Mandalorian was? And I know it's a guess. That's it's not a fair question.
I think we've got a little bit short. 27?
No, the shortest episode is 32 minutes. This is 33. The shortest one is 32. But do you know which episode it was?
Oh, let's see here. I would say...
Lou and Tim chime in too with your guesses. Tim's looking it up probably. I can see him over on the other monitor there.
I would say Sanctuary, the Bryce Dallas Howard episode in the first season.
Okay, good guess.
I don't know the number.
I think that was also 4. A shorter one. But Lou, any guesses? It was season 1.
I don't know. Yeah, I figured it was season 1. Gosh, I don't even have a guess.
All right, it was episode 2. The one where he goes and fights the Mudhorn and the Jawas and all that. Okay. Yeah. So so this is basically tied for the shortest episode of the series so far, and yet it is one of the denser episodes. We've got, for guests, Tamura Morrison reprising his role as Boba Fett, but actually speaking this time around, actually doing things. We have Ming-Na Wen back as Fennec Shand. And again, Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon. So, this was a packed episode.
That's Uncle Gideon to you.
That's what?
Uncle Gideon.
Uncle Gideon.
Yeah, Uncle Gideon.
He was enjoying those scenes with Grogu a little bit too much there. That was he was really enjoying himself. I have to imagine as an actor that would just be really fun too. We were talking about this on our watch together today, which by the way we recorded for our bonus and premium Patreon donors. Giancarlo Esposito, to land that role as Moff Gideon, you get not only a lightsaber, but you get the Darksaber, the only named lightsaber in Star Wars lore. You get a Darth Vader-like armor, and yet you get to show your face. You're running what's left of the Empire. You're interacting with the #1 pop culture fictional character in the world right now. Like in a one-on-one scene. Like it's just, there's so much that's the perfect Star Wars role. That's the role everybody would want.
But
and you have a really cool cruiser, and a small army of dark troopers.
By the way, I want to know the name of that cruiser because it has to be befitting of someone of his station. Giancarlo has paid his bad guy dues to get to this point. It's not as if he just got picked out. And my favorite thing from the last week or so, The Onion had an article, a satire article that was appearance of Giancarlo Esposito suggests that the main character is effed. And then how like his character's appearance, somebody's watching it and they're like, oh no, he's gonna jack him up.
Right.
Yeah.
Although the funny thing is, I mean, he's definitely one of the big bads in the Empire right now, but he doesn't rate a Star Destroyer, just a cruiser.
That's okay.
That looks so much better, though.
Oh, it's a cool cruiser. I mean, those cruisers are cool.
I'd rather have one of those, frankly.
Like, I want the Lego version. Lego version. Give me the Lego version of that cruiser, please. Thank you.
It does at least look. We don't have an official measurement of it, but it looks like a bigger version of the Arquitens cruiser. So it's definitely an Arquitens. It just looks like it's a little bit longer. And somebody on Twitter had pointed out with an eagle eye that it looks like it's got additional launch bays for ties, so it probably has an additional carrying capacity.
Because we have seen that ship design before, right?
Yeah.
Throughout Rebels.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. I knew I saw it somewhere.
So maybe in the same way that there's the Victory class Star Destroyer and the Imperial class Star Destroyer, maybe there are two different variants of this then, and now we're seeing a larger one.
It could just be like a plussed up, like the Imperial 1 and the Imperial 2 Star Destroyer, something like that.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat here as well. Hi, Lila. Isn't it like bedtime in Germany right now?
It's an honor to have you by our side.
That is very true. I'm just upset that Tom got to it before I did, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about that later. Anyhow. So the episode starts out, we hit Tython, and I got to say, I was expecting to get to this later on in the season. I kind of figured, we talked about predictions and speculation last episode. I was thinking that was going to be the 2-part finale. And I don't know, this almost felt like the beginning of a 3-part finale because we've got 2 episodes left. And right out of the gate, they land on Tython.
A hell of a build-up. Just this massive build-up into what will be the finale. Right. Like this builds all the tension and the root of conflict that we're going to get in this like awesome mega 2-part finale, which I hope each one of these episodes are like 3 hours long.
That would be nice.
I was surprised when he came on screen and pulled up the nav chart and said that they were approaching Tython. I legitimately thought there was going to be another stop off. I mean, the show has almost trained us in a way to do that.
Right. Yeah, I actually had low expectations for this episode going into it because I was expecting, we're going to have another little, a little waypoint before we get to the destination.
Right.
And nope, we land and they walk out there and they're like, okay,
you're treading water until we get to the end of the episode, and then that's where it was going to happen.
Exactly. And instead they hit the jetpack and they're walking around. And, bunch of stones, nothing going on.
Well, the interesting thing is about season 2, aside from like one small little lull we had, this season is getting better and better and better every episode. It's like they keep throwing more and more at us. I'm like, this is what I want season 1 to be. I'm like, I was really happy with season 1, but wow, we're getting lots of stuff.
It keeps building and building. I'm actually looking forward to, once the season is over, to then just watching each episode back to back. And like I did that with the first season, and it was good and it was fun and it was exciting. But this season is just like there's this crescendo that it keeps building up to, and it's insane. It's going to be awesome to just watch these episodes, one right after the other.
And I have to say,
last week,
go ahead, Tom.
Last week we had a fair bit of discussion about all the various plot lines that were hanging out there. And there wasn't a sense that somehow these were going to weave together. And that was probably a naive point of view to think that they couldn't find a way to wrap some of these characters.
This resolved like
together.
16 plot lines.
I know. And I'm sitting there watching.
Well, it started to weave a few of them together. You know,
some
we had talked about.
I'm sitting here like, well, we were a bunch of doinks last week for acting they didn't know what they were doing.
Well, I don't think we said that. I think that, and I stand behind some of them. I still don't think we're going to get Ahsoka for the rest of the season. And if we do, it'll be a walk-on role, and that's it. We knew, I mean, they've done so much foreshadowing with Boba Fett. We knew we were going to get Boba Fett at some point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what they're doing makes sense because, I mean, you know, we don't think we're going to see anything with the wrapping up of Bo-Katan. I mean, that there's more to that story than we can put in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But we're getting the main part that we're getting, you know, Gideon's back, and we're getting the wrap up of that storyline. We're getting the wrap up of some of the, you know, Grogu storyline. It's coming together nicely, I think. I mean, there's still a lot more things to bring it up, but I'm happy with it.
Now,
so far.
I think, and Tom Nelson just said this in the chat here. I think we're going to end up getting a team up with Bo-Katan joining in when they go to infiltrate whatever base or bunker or ship Gideon happens to be on with the child at the time. Because, of course, he's called Dr. Pershing. So
the Darksaber.
They could be on the ship. They could be somewhere else.
Could be.
But I really
She
think...
could use that cruiser.
Huh?
She could use that cruiser in the fight
to
retake Mandalore.
Right. But I think it's really going to be them kind of teaming up, and we're going to see this big infiltration and exfiltration. That's my prediction, but I don't think we're going to get to see Ahsoka. We do have to still resolve the whole Force beacon thing with the child, with Grogu, and who heard it? What does it mean? What's the next plan? And I imagine that's going to be the final scene in this season that provides a cliffhanger into season 3. I still think it's going to be Ezra, but I could be wrong. I really hope it's not Luke, honestly.
At that point, Boba Fett just goes haywire if he sees Mace.
Right. Well, see, that's the other thing. And we talked about this in Discord. We haven't mentioned it yet on this show. I am one of the people who believe that we may see Mace Windu again. I think that
I hope not.
I don't know. I think that appearance that Samuel Jackson made at Celebration on that big screen monitor, I don't think that was coincidence. And he even mentioned that, like, he kind of planted some seeds about the fact that, you know, just because someone falls in Star Wars, if they're a Force user, I mean, we had Anakin do it intentionally. We had Palpatine do it and survive. Huh?
I said cough, Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, who was chopped in half and fell. I mean, come on.
Right.
It would be the greatest thing possibly in the world to see Sam Jackson walk on screen with the purple lightsaber, wearing some robes, saying, "What's up, MFer? That little green dude is mine."
Well, you know what would be perfect?
Done.
We do not know who the director is for the last episode. They've not announced it.
Also, Sam Jackson.
What if it were George Lucas getting back into the saddle, into the director's seat, directing Mace Windu for one last ride to reintroduce him?
I mean, if he wants to do the
I've
editing,
seen this
sure.
mentioned on Twitter today.
I don't want to.
And I gotta say, George Lucas directing an episode of this would be just like really awesome.
It wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
I don't
it would
think
be
so.
fan service.
George isn't known for his directing abilities.
What Lou said.
I know he's not a great director, but I think the story can surpass his directing ability.
It would depend on the episode.
He doesn't need to have the finale. I'll say that. I love George Lucas.
I do too.
But
yes.
To be clear, I mean,
it's not as a director.
He does a lot of things better than a lot of other filmmakers. Directing actors just is not his thing. Editing is his thing. World building, establishing shots, like just the vision for how the special effects are going to work out. There's a whole slew of things that he does better than anybody else, but his one weakness is directing actors, and I just don't know. But I would like to see him involved. But here's the thing. A reunion with Mace Windu and Boba Fett, you know, Mace Windu, who chopped his dad's head off, that could be interesting too.
Good times.
That's a conflict.
Yeah. little bit.
Good times.
And the last time they saw each other, Boba Fett literally tried to blow him up on his own Star Destroyer.
So, I don't know. I think that could be interesting. However, let's get back to the episode here. So we've got
Boba would be like, "You killed my father." Sam Jackson would be like, "No, I played soccer with your father's head."
That was your dad?
Okay.
So he wasn't,
no more alcohol. We're new policy. No more alcohol
combat.
on our Outer Rim episodes here. So we're on Tython. We get Boba Fett and Fennec Shan returning. I was not expecting to see Slave One fly in, especially that early on in the episode, like right out of the gate.
What a great shot of it.
I know,
though.
right?
Yeah, it really was.
What a great way to reintroduce it.
That looked really good that way. Yep.
You heard the engine first, and I was sitting there. This is like 4 a.m. And you hear that distinctive like hum of Slave One's engine. And I was like, no. And then in an instant, he picks up his head and sees it flying through the air, and you're like, I sat straight up on my couch and was like, oh snap, here we go.
Yeah. So then we get the little brief confrontation there. The troopers show up. Mandalorian runs up the hill to get the child while the others fend off the troopers. And it was just, to me, like, it fit the story. And for viewers like my son, I think it's going to help him kind of get it. But to me, it felt very heavy-handed how deliberately they took Din Djarin out of commission for the sake of the rest of those action shots. I mean, he puts his jetpack down, which, I mean, if he was going to do that, why didn't Boba Fett also say, put your blasters down, disable your little, Risk mini missile thing, and like all of the... No, put your jetpack down. Okay. And then he goes up and he can't get through the little force bubble. So then he tries again and he knocks himself out. And then when he does come to, what's he do? He tries yet again, which to me seemed like a rookie move, but...
And then he's like, I'll be right back.
But I think,
I can't.
I'll keep you safe. Like, you're the only safe person on this planet right now, but it's okay. I'll keep you safe. But I think it shows the heroism of the character trying to, the child is his priority. And I think viewers...
Beyond all reason at that.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, like, I put myself into his boots if it was one of my daughters in that sort of dangerous situation, and I'd lose limbs to try to get through that force field. So I think that was a good way to convey that, and maybe this is some foreshadowing, that he's willing to do some real stupid stuff in defense of Grogu. And if that means decommissioning himself in a big fight,
right?
That just maybe
it did really demonstrate where his priorities are, and him as the hero, as opposed to just him on a mission. So,
and it's almost, I don't want to read too much into what may have been a plot device to set up a fight for Boba and Fennec. But it's almost sort of a look into what Ahsoka was talking about in the inverse way. She spoke of the danger of attachment for a Jedi to have, and what that meant or might mean for Grogu. But you see this sort of bond that's developed between Mando and the child, and you think he's doing things that and taking risks that he probably wouldn't otherwise.
Right.
And now he's got this attachment that's causing him to even go further down that path. And what does that look like down the line? I guarantee you, last season at episode 1 and 2, he's not going to be trying to drum up a crew to attack an Imperial light cruiser over a little creature like this. He's going to move on with his life. So it's sort of an interesting inverse parallel that I see there. And
it makes sense. I mean, it fits. It moves the story the right way, and it moves the character development the right way. I have to say that regarding the Boba and Fennec fight, this is the right way to use a gaffi stick. Like, when it comes to proper gaffi stick usage, this was it. We finally learned.
I know. I'm going back and watching A New Hope and thinking it's a rookie show.
Yeah.
With the sand.
Yeah. Well, they had too much wine before they went out and hunted Luke. That's what that was.
It was. I mean, this was probably the most physically violent episode of The Mandalorian we have seen across the 2 seasons.
Almost of any Star Wars content,
was
honestly.
An absolute badass. I mean, he was wrecking these stormtroopers, and like to the point that it was like, not only did I beat you, but now I killed you. Mm-hmm. Like taking that extra hit every single time. It was bonkers. It was awesome. I loved it.
He just had a rage on his face. Yeah. That was just sort of unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this was probably the most graphically violent armor Star Wars scene we've seen.
That one stormtrooper that's crumpled up. It looked like
limbs twisted around and the helmet all mashed in and stuff. And
yeah. I mean, it was that. Every time you hit somebody, you see shards of armor flying. I was like, ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you know, I think Tamora Morrison was, you know, allowed to run out the leash in this role, and I really hope that that's the way, you know, he's allowed to, assuming he appears in the next 2 episodes. But I look back at the fight between him and Obi-Wan at Kamino and Attack of the Clones, and you know that was a pretty violent fight, but just G-rated compared to this one. And it showed how much range he has, because you see him sort of, you know, expressing a quieter side, a more evolved side of the character when they first meet. And then, you know, if there was any doubt about whether he still got it after the Sarlacc, that got answered pretty quickly.
Well, and it was nice to see Boba Fett in canon finally do something to kind of shut the haters up. Not that it'll shut up the haters, but like he actually was... He's good at what he does, and we got to see that. And I'm happy.
I mean, just this, I mean, this ridiculous fighting style with whatever he had in his hands.
Yeah, right.
Or on his knee, or mounted to his knee. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like just everything. I mean, it was nuts. Yeah. I mean, you know, so I mean, earlier in the season, it was really cool to see him with the gaffi stick slung over his back and stuff. You're like, okay, you know, dude's been hanging out on Tatooine for a while, and maybe he found it somewhere. Maybe he killed a Tusken Raider or something. Sure, that's cool, whatever. But we got to see him use it, and not just like, you know, shake it over his head a few times. He bashed people with it, and then, you know, and then he comes out with this like 2/3 suit of his old armor, and he's just like. The choreography of the fight was just absolutely fantastic. You know, I mean, at one point, he has a stormtrooper coming up on his left after he's done like shooting guys who are in front of him, and he just, you know, pulls his blaster over to his left and shoots without even looking.
Yep.
You know, just really, really cool stuff. Then he's using all these little gadgets on his armor that we never got to actually see in action. We've only seen like on the action figures and stuff, like the little knee rockets, which is a little okay, but it's fine.
They were small. They were not excessive.
It was cool though. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I love seeing it. It was awesome.
Another thing about that scene too is, in my opinion, so this is my, I guess what we used to call headcanon a few years ago. The fact that he's hitting the stormtroopers with this gaffi stick, and you're seeing shards of the armor come off. There's always been this complaint in Star Wars that, you know, they're wearing armor and yet they get hit once by a blaster and they're dead. I have always believed that the armor was more of a uniform than it was actually supposed to protect them from blaster bolts. I mean, if you go into a village and you know, raise the village or something like that, it's supposed to be a psychologically terrifying set of armor. It's not supposed to be something where a bunch of farmers with sticks and pitchforks and stuff, you're not concerned about taking blaster shots. It's not an actual military. Now, maybe back in the Clone Wars, the clone troopers were different. But with the stormtroopers, I always saw them as more of an intimidation force, armed, but the Empire didn't really let anybody else be armed, right? So how much defense do they really need? And it was all about the sheer numbers, not about them being able to take hits or something. The idea was no matter how much you shoot, there's still more coming.
And that's what this fight came down to. And it's called plastoid armor, I think, for a reason, because it's just maybe a strengthened version of the Star Wars version of plastic. But, you know, I think my read on it, and I think this is reflected in canon, it's sort of like real life body armor, real life Kevlar. Kevlar will not stop everything. If you go back even to World War II and the steel helmets that they wore, that wasn't going to stop a direct shot from a bullet, right? But it increases survivability. And that doesn't mean you stay in the fight like Mando does, just deflecting blaster rounds. It means that you have a better chance of being able to be pulled off the battlefield alive, get repaired, get patched up, and get back in the fight.
You can take glancing blows. You don't have to worry as much about shrapnel, etc.
Yeah.
Not Ewok spears. Not Ewok
Well,
spears.
I mean...
not things like Ewok spears.
That's a one-shot kill.
Vicious little things.
I am wondering, Tom, so, you know, you cosplay as Captain Rex. What you know, what extent of damage can your armor take? Like what do you think you can handle?
Well, you know, because of the pandemic, I've had to
Are you planning something, Tim? What is... That's kind of a loaded question there.
Next time we're together, I'm going to pull a gaffi stick and see how hard I can hit Tom. See what happens.
It's just, it's like Happy Gilmore. I'll stand there like he does in the batting cage. Like, oh, that one hurt a little. You got it. But no, I thought this was a good example of stormtrooper tactics. Eric, you're spot on about canonically it being reflective of how the Empire fights, because it's not about, this isn't a special forces squad, right? They didn't send in the dark troopers immediately. They sent in 2 troop transports filled with folks. What I did love seeing was the mixed infantry uses, right? You didn't just see a bunch of white armored you know, infantrymen, stormtroopers charging up the hill. You got a mortarman, you got a machine gun team, for lack of a better term, with that E-Web. They got their stuff together pretty quickly after they got slapped in the face at the beginning of the fight, and that was really, I don't think we've ever seen a stormtrooper mortar team.
I don't think so either.
That was awesome to see too. But you're right. The squad tactics were pretty spot on. It looked pretty good from a non-military
not horribly
guy
effective
like myself.
But
no, they didn't have the high.
Right.
Lesson number 1.
But yeah, it was one of the few times where we actually saw someone commanding a squad barking orders that were sometimes listened to and sometimes not. You know, you've got
Get up there, you idiot.
And then, you know, we've got the mortar rounds, the machine gun, etc. Like it was, I thought it was a lot more interesting than what we normally get to see. Now, the one thing I didn't, and I think Tim pointed this out during the watch together, Fennec Shan running along the top of that ridgeline with an E-Web following her. Just jump onto the other side of the ridgeline.
Yeah.
They have no idea where you are now. You've got cover. You've got concealment. You win. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She needed him to blast that rock.
It was visually more interesting. Yeah, and that's the thing. She had to get to that position where you got the Indiana Jones moment.
I do appreciate Robert Rodriguez and I guess Jon Favreau, since he wrote the episode, for not just allowing Fennec to come back. I genuinely think that was the plan all along from season 1, but to let her character live up to the rep that they had given her in that episode, because they talked her up. You know, Mando's hesitant to even get in on the mission because she's this renowned assassin of the Hutts. You know, there's a little bit of combat there, but ultimately she gets taken out by a rookie, and everybody sort of assumes that she's dead. You get to see her running and gunning, no scoping stormtroopers left and right. I mean, this is somebody that earned her reputation.
Yeah, I'm glad they're bringing her back, in part because I think the character's compelling, but also I like Ming-Na Wen, and I'm glad to see her being part of Star Wars now.
Yeah, I'm glad that she's back. You know, we talked about this last season. I was really hopeful that it wasn't just going to be a one-off thing for her, because it was kind of lame. She's back. She's a cyborg. She's clearly awesome, and we got to see her in far more action than we did last season. And for her to be like shooting all these stormtroopers with a long gun at close range, basically shooting from the hip, was like nuts. And it was a lot of fun. It was good.
All right, let's move along to the moment that is the cause for the title of this episode, The Tragedy. The thing that the whole season basically with Din Djarin on his quest, almost from the beginning of the series, since the first episode, has kind of led up to this moment, this ultimate tragedy, if you will.
Yeah,
the Razor Crest getting blown up.
Yeah, that's.
I almost cried.
I'm still trying to process that.
And he just got it fixed up.
I was shocked. I was just. I didn't scream out in horror, but I was speechless. I was like, oh my God.
I could not believe it.
Guys, the disruptor rifle was on the ship. It got atomized. It's
also,
gone.
The ship, Tim.
Yeah, that too.
Dude can go buy a new car.
Dude can go buy a new rifle.
I really don't think you can just buy.
I don't think you can
rifle,
just really buy a Razor Crest.
Any average street let's
talk about the real.
He's going to buy a ship. It's going to be all over the Imperial and New Republic registries. It's going to be a whole thing. You think ships just come equipped with carbon freezing chambers?
You can't get an unregistered ship these days. Yeah,
I know.
And I was so close to finally getting that Lego Razor Crest, and now the price is going to go through the roof because everybody knows they're not going to make that anymore. They're going to make whatever the next ship is. We're never going to get our collector's edition version. Like, that's the only Razor Crest I'm ever going to be able to get. And now instead of like $130, it's going to be like $250 or something.
Well, I'll gladly
you?
sell you my HasLab Razor Crest because that thing.
Yeah, I feel bad for people that ponied up for that.
I told Tim earlier, we were texting this morning early, and I said, that box is just going to come with a bunch of burned up plastic parts. And Tim corrected me and said, and an intact Beskar spear. You'll get that.
True. You get the Beskar spear. Yeah. Well, I was saying this morning when we were doing the watch, episode we did. Like, I'm going to go out in the backyard. I'm going to dig a hole in the dirt, make it all charred, and say, "Here's my Razor Crest."
Too soon, Lou. Too soon. That was rough. That was that.
Yeah, so Tom, when are you expecting your Razor Crest to come in? By the way,
it's going to come in several pieces. I've got the Lego Advent calendar, and one of the builds is a little mini Razor Crest. I'm just going to leave it in pieces. I'm not going to assemble it because that's not really.
I didn't get the Advent calendar this year.
Yeah, I didn't get that this year either. Yeah.
I will say we haven't seen much. I don't think we've seen anything on screen in terms of like an orbital shot like that from a capital ship, but just seeing the power, just a single shot. Mm-hmm. It's not like they bombarded the area.
Right. It was just
somebody pulled the trigger once and it obliterated.
Very precise. Yeah. And back to the size of the ship. That's one of the reasons I think that he's got a smaller ship instead of a giant Star Destroyer is because at least in Legends, the point of the difference between, so everybody giggling, what you're not seeing is the very thing that I tried to get Tim not to do back when we were doing exclusively audio podcasts, which was to do all the little visual jokes. But so now what he does is he sends them through the chat thing in Skype so you guys don't see it. And then all of a sudden I start talking and everybody else starts laughing and nobody can really understand why if they're watching it. Tim?
He sent me a picture of a crater and said that's what Hasbro is sending.
Again, too soon.
That's my Razor Crest.
And I was taken by surprise. I couldn't.
The Razor Crest is not dead. That's a magical teleportation beam. And a couple pieces fell off.
They can rebuild
a couple pieces fell off during the process. It's okay. It's
Queel could rebuild it if he were
It's
alive.
beamed somewhere else. So it'll be okay. Anyway, I was talking about the Star Destroyers. So the Victory class Star Destroyer was the smaller version of the Imperial class, and it could go into atmosphere for bombardments and stuff like that. But the Imperial class was too big. So I kind of figure that's why he's got this smaller Star Destroyer, is it gives him more flexibility in doing that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, we've seen, at least in Rebels, we've seen Imperial class start, like the Chimera came into atmosphere over Lothal to bombard Lothal City. Yeah,
Did it bombard it from atmosphere?
And in fact,
Okay.
Yeah. He parked the ship right over the city there.
Okay, so it wasn't orbital at least bombardment. It was within. Okay.
Yeah, he was in.
I need to rewatch that stuff.
Over the
it's
city.
Been too long. I think Tim's frozen. Tim's video's frozen.
He's in chat timeout.
Right.
Or podcast
I didn't even know that was something I could do. I did that. Start using that more often.
Visual gag, and he's gone.
Yeah.
It was the moment though. It genuinely caught me off guard, and I said that last week that the show with Thrawn's Thrawn's naming caught me off guard, but this is the second time in a row that Star Wars has caught me off guard now, because I didn't expect the Razor Crest to be blown up. I had chalked it up like the Falcon. It's going to take hits. It's going to get broken apart, but it's a character in the show.
Right. It's going to be there forever.
Right.
Yeah. We had a character in the show killed off effectively.
That was rough. But obviously the real tragedy that they're referring to is Grogu getting taken by the Dark Troopers. And what'd you think of the Dark Troopers, by the way? I mean, there was no big battle scene or anything. It was just they drop in, they get the kid, they fly out.
Well, it was kind of a letdown because we had all the great battle stuff with the Stormtroopers earlier, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, go get them and activate the Dark Troopers, and 4 of them come shooting out of this cruiser. You're thinking, oh, yeah. And they get this cool sequence where they flip and they do a burn, they slow down, and then just grab the kid and leave. I'm like, okay.
I just wanted them to fan out, like one goes after Grogu and the rest fan out and pull security or something like that. But they just sort of ominously walk toward him.
Yeah.
I was a bit bummed that they were full-on droids.
Okay.
I wanted them to be
actual troopers.
Yeah. Enhanced with enhanced armor or something.
I mean, droids traditionally in Star Wars, not that impressive, other than, the IG units. You look back to the prequels.
Or the super battle droids.
Yeah.
My EU knowledge is very rusty on this point, but I think there was one version of the Dark Trooper project that could be used in a dual function capacity. So you could have it as an autonomous battle droid, for lack of a better term. You could also have it used as an exoskeleton. And so the thought was, maybe Gideon gets force powers and he's able to sort of switch modes and use a Dark Trooper outfit to make himself even more powerful. But, anything could happen at this point. We've seen him for, 15 seconds on screen.
Yeah, true. Well, and again, I think it's foreshadowing for what we're going to see over the next couple of episodes. I fully expect we're going to see the Mandalorians, Bo-Katan, Boba Fett, etc., fighting against the Dark Troopers. I think that's going to be a big thing. It's just my take on it.
It was an interesting setup at the end. He's putting together a crew. He goes back to Navarro and meets with Cara Dune,
who's now a marshal for the Republic.
And it was and funny you should say that, because it's nice to get confirmation. I obsessed over what that emblem was that Carson Teva gave her, and we speculated that maybe it was a badge, and indeed it's a marshal's badge,
right? But not like a medal, but an actual
badge,
law enforcement badge. So, yeah,
right.
Yeah, so she's gone semi-legit, and I didn't expect him to try to dig up Mayfeld.
No, I'm still not sure how I feel about that.
We've seen,
and I don't know why that's a thing. I mean, it's like this guy had the knowledge. Why does he have the knowledge? I mean, who is he to? Oh, he knows all about Gideon.
Why would Din Djarin trust him?
They don't have any backstory.
And what would make him think he knows anything? Like, they never met before that one job. They haven't spoken presumably since that one job, because he's been in jail. So.
I'm sure there's a lot of ex-Imperials in the New Republic, right? I mean, a lot of guys probably said, you know what, I'm out. These guys aren't doing the right thing. I'm out. I'm going to join the good guys.
Yeah, if it's just knowledge of how to attack a cruiser like that, you would think he could legitimately, he wouldn't need to break somebody out to get that help. So I think there's a little something more to it. I think it would be awesome. Boba Fett certainly has pretty extensive contacts, And are we going to get to see somebody like a Bosk or a Dengar come in by the end of the season and join this crew?
That would be nice. I would be very happy about that.
Right? Both featured heavily. Probably Bosk more so, much more so than Dengar. I mean, Bosk was very tight knit with Boba all the way through the Clone Wars, and certainly they weren't working together in Empire,
right.
but they sort of remained close with one another.
But then in Legends, Boba Fett and Dengar worked pretty closely. So
right, yeah, Fennec almost has stepped into Dengar's role in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see where that goes. And then the other thing that we have to figure out is, again, like we mentioned earlier in the episode, who is it that hears Grogu's little beacon call? And what's that going to entail?
Someone's going to show up at the very end.
Yeah, I imagine the final scene of the season.
But I'm also excited about what we're going to get out of Gideon now. I mean, we kind of joked about Uncle Gideon because, he was playing that, he's warming up to the kid. He's being the kind of, smiling kind of, hey, type thing. And he's got some battletory motives going on there. But what's going to happen with this? I mean, is he just letting Grogu his rage come out and say, hey, now we're going to turn to the dark side. And I want him to be strong and take the easy path and go fast. And, and that's what it seems like he's doing.
Right. Yeah.
It was interesting when he uttered the line, send a transmission or send a message. There was a part of me that thought to Thrawn, but it's to Dr. Pershing. Right. And you wonder whether Thrawn has any sort of relationship with Gideon or if he's sort of out on his own quest here.
I've been wondering that quite a bit too. Is what that connection is, because they're setting Gideon up as the big bad, but then they're also kind of setting Thrawn up behind the scenes. So unless Thrawn is, again, going to spin off with the Ahsoka storyline if she gets her own series, and then kind of be separate from the Gideon thing. Gideon's more of a localized threat. Thrawn is maybe a bigger threat or somewhere else regionally. I don't know.
Well, no, this is what, 5 years after Jedi?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are we still under the kind of Legends interpretation that we have, regional warlords each controlling a remnant of whatever is left of the Empire? And Gideon's got his set of forces.
That kind of seemed alluded to. I mean, that was one of the storylines. I know the video games aren't canon, but that's kind of something that was brought up in the solo campaign in Squadrons recently, because you had a little bit of that sort of interaction.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and there's other canon material. There was a Governor Adelhard that had the Anoat sector with including Bespin kind of locked down, and there was that was its own campaign. There was Moff Tolzek, I'm pronouncing his name, Lozruk, something like that controlled Kashyyyk. He was out on his own. It was almost like the rapture had occurred in terms of that being the contingency where the Palpatine had pre-picked his Imperial officers to get the coordinates and go out to the unknown regions. Everybody else got left behind and had to fend for themselves. They didn't have that guidance. They didn't get their cool little messenger droid. And so, is Gideon, which side of the fence is Gideon on?
Right.
Is still an unresolved question. I still think it would be amazing in the final episode if, Gideon has some sort of duel. I think we're marching toward that with Mando, but if the Chimera, Thrawn's destroyer, comes in at the last second, sort of tied in tandem with a response from some Jedi to Grogu's call, and that's sort of the dual cliffhanger that we get.
Yeah.
You just see
would be
that Chimera emblem on the bottom of the Star Destroyer as it jumps.
That would be a very painful tease.
Oh, it'd be a brutal 10-month wait.
Yeah. That would be rough. That would be grinding salt into that wound a little bit, I think, and yet totally something they would do. Yeah.
Yeah. When it could fit.
It could.
The Chimera fought at even after Thrawn disappeared. It was at the Battle of Endor, but didn't get destroyed. the door's wide open for him to retake command of that ship and continue the fight.
It's true. Well, we've only got 2 episodes left. So I don't know. We were talking before about that's not a lot of time to do very much. And yet they did a lot in this episode. They did a lot in the last episode. Maybe we'll luck out.
I mean, so yeah, I was the one saying it last time that, look, we don't get that much in each episode and they're short episodes, but you know what? This episode gave us a lot. If they can do that same kind of thing in the next 2 episodes, yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're going to have a cliffhanger. I know we're not going to wrap up all the storylines we talked about last week, but we're going to wrap up a fair amount, at least maybe not totally wrapped up, but at least wrapped up to the point where we feel there's been some closure, yet there's still some story left.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, we will see. We will be back next week with another episode of The Outer Rim. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. I can't imagine we're going to get another episode that's going to be accused of being a filler episode, whether it is or isn't. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the next 2 are going to be explosive episodes. So...
I remember last week afterward there's an ILM visual FX artist on Twitter that said simply, you guys are in for a wild ride for the last 3 episodes. And I thought, what could that mean? And if this is the start of his definition of wild ride, I think it's living up to the definition.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is good. I think this is going to be a good way to wrap up this season. I'm looking forward to it. It's just going to be an excruciatingly long wait for season 3. So, but
yeah, I mean, yes and no, but I mean, it's I feel like we get enough story elements to make us feel good about this, but not, I mean, I hate shows that just do cliffhangers for cliffhangers' sake, and they feel too forced.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sometimes shows do that where it's like, oh, we're not going to purposely tell you. And all of a sudden, oh, look, it was this after all. It's like, no, that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah, I think we're going to get resolution
These
for things for this season while we get teases for the next season. And that's the right way to do it, right? You want to make sure that you're satiated for now, but still hungry for what's coming in the future.
And while I'm not a believer that any episode is a filler episode, because I genuinely believe every shot matters, this episode showed us they're not going to waste any time in these last 3 episodes. Everything's going to be purposeful and, moving pieces around the chessboard.
Right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of The Outer Rim. Thank you for hanging out with us. If you are listening to this via audio, consider checking it out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/randomchatter, or better yet, randomchatter.com/YouTube, and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we will
see all our beautiful faces.
Right. Or, whatever you call this, because I don't know. That's not how I would describe it. But it's a little bit different spin on our shows. So we would really appreciate it if you would do that. That would help us out quite a bit as far as discovery for new audience members as well. And you can join the other audience members in Discord. Go to randomchatter.com/Discord. We have a channel dedicated to The Outer Rim, like we do for all of the shows on the Random Chatter Network. And let us know what you thought about this episode. And I don't know. I've got my fingers crossed for some good stuff coming up soon. We will bring that to you next week. But until then, take care, everybody. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you, everybody, hanging out in the stream with us. I think we're going to go ahead and stop it there. So have a great weekend, and we will see you Sunday night for Echo Base and Random Chatter.